Okay, just before I go back to Moksa, so I was asked like this. This is a mask. Seems to be very harmless, very harmless. And there's a piece that goes up and down in the mask like this. That's how these things work. It goes up like this. Otherwise, sometimes when it goes like this, like that, you can see over there. You can see like that. It goes up and down. Why would it go up and down? Because let's say you have like big ears. Some people have big ears, so then they want it to be, and some people have these little weenie ears, little small things. And that's how it goes. So you go up and down, can feed the size of your ear. And sometimes people's ears grow, and that's how it goes. That's why this thing goes up and down. Okay, so on Shabbos, it fell off. The piece fell off. Yeah, this thing. So the Shaila was, could you put it back on Shabbos? So I was asked. So before I answer, what's the answer? Anybody know? No, what do you say? Ramel, what do you say? His mother? Well, so the answer is that I have no idea. What's it based on? If it's going to be easy to put back on, it's not a deraisa of makeh b'patish, maybe meaning the feed that lumdis that makeh b'patish is only the first time. The feed there's places that hold the second time could be makeh b'patish if it's difficult. But we want to know one thing: is it difficult to put it back on? If she's difficult to put back on, so then it's either going to be an issa tircha or it's going to be an issa deraisa makeh b'patish. So let's see if it's difficult to go back on. I don't know. Let's see. This is fresh off the. This is not. This is real. This is real life. No, it's a mamish. It's real life. This is life. This is really life. What? No, it's not rehearsed. I have no idea if it's going to be easy or not. Let's see. Someone asked me. Rabbi, you asked me. I should tell. I can tell them who it is. Nothing to do with the bugle boy thing. So let's see if it's easy to get back in. It does look like I'm going to have to use chesavis, and it looks like I'm actually going to have to use Munkach's chesavis. No, it's not so easy. No, it's the whole. You have to get like a little thin thing. How did you get it back in? And you have to be careful because you don't want to break it, right? It's not easy. I don't think it's easy. I didn't even do it yet. So here's your thing. It's not easy. I didn't finish it for you. I'm sorry. But it's your mask, so I'm not going to be shy to use alcohol gel if it came near your mouth. That's for sure. No. But so, yeah, what do you think? Asr? No, you saw it real life. No, what did you do, Rabbi Mo? Did you do it on Shabbos? No, because you were afraid, right? Okay, so that I would think is taka asr l'chayra, and then l'chayra. It takes precision. It's difficult. It seems to be difficult. Are you still having a hard time with it? Shows how hard. I don't know, but I would definitely be nervous to put that back on Shabbos. That's number one. Sorry. Here the Nakudis is the placement. Once it go on, who knows? Maybe even somebody would say this. Now you can't say it's a Shem Yiksha, right? Because then you would ruin it if you would tie it. No, maybe why? You could tie it at the end. What? Yeah, but somebody might go and tie it because you can say, I don't want that to ever happen again. What? Yeah, you might tie it at the end. I don't know. I would not do it on Shabbos. That's number one. Okay, number two. Sorry. Come again? Yeah, no, you can still wear it. It's still wearable. I'm saying that's not the issue. That's the clear. That's number one. Number two is I don't know. I was kind of thinking maybe it's an afkamina between if you learn that the second time putting on is makeh b'patish, or if you learn the second time putting on is tircha, because here it's a usable mask. It just has some extra function, right? It's totally usable without that thing, right? What? With the whole ear matziv over here. Yeah. So, no, I was thinking it's a usable mask and it just has a benefit of that. So I'm not sure if you learn that the second time is makeh b'patish, maybe you won't call this makeh b'patish. If you learn the second time is tircha, so then it would still be a tircha. Akapanim, ich have moira to be makel on such a thing. I would not be makel on such a thing. That's number one. Number two is l'gabe muksa. So let's go back a little bit to talking today. What I'm going to do is like this. I still feel the oil needs a little bit of time to properly start Kli Shmach Tali Yisr. Today, what I want to do is I want to continue some of the basic hakdamas of Muksa, and then maybe just give you some terminology. Again, some people, they already know Muksa, but not everybody does. And also, we always say, base medrash b'lo chiddush. And therefore, let me tell you some terminology so that I could be able to myself, it would be easier for me to give the shir if I could throw around certain terminology, whether it's basis, whether it's tiltul ratzad, whether it's klachayat, certain terminology that'll make it easier for us to understand the Hemshech Hashira. But before that, maybe a little bit a recap with some additions. First of all, I Makir Tov. Rabbi Lieberman told me Gvaldika Ora in the Tefillah Zaka. I got thought it was in Tashlach. He told me it's in the Tefillah Zaka. It's in both. Yeah. In Tefillah Zaka, what's one of the one things that we go and we tell the Rebbeinu Shalom, please have Rachmanis on us and be Meichel us. It's because we moved Muksa on Shabbos. We moved Muksa on Shabbos, and because we moved Muksa on Shabbos, that's what we're worried about as the Yom HaKadosh comes in. So Veldik Maisa, Mamshe, and Tashlach also Dachsach. I didn't check it up. In Tashlach, he checked up Tefillah Zaka. No, it's Mamshe Veldik Maisa. It means the Yom HaKadosh. What is it that we're telling the Rebbeinu Shalom? We need a mechila for muksa, that our hand, because the idea is when your hands are when you're not in control of your hands, that's when anything can happen in Hilchos Shabbos. So that's what we're saying to the Rebbeinu Shalom. We're saying to them, listen, we weren't in control of our hands, and give us a chance. Yadayim askanias haim. That's number one. Someone told me a Peltic Maisa. Told me that in Volozhin, remember I mentioned the other day, Rav Yaakov Emden, Yonis Eibschitz said over that the big problem in his door was that they were moving around post. What's post? Doesn't mean the New York Post, right? It means the post, the mail. So they were moving around the post. And that was Muksa, and he screamed, they're moving around post, and it's a terrible thing. So somebody told me on Shabbos, told me that in Volozhin, there was a problem with post. What was the problem? The problem was people on Shabbos, the mail, they would get the mail, and let's say the person didn't get his mail on Erev Shabbos. So, or maybe it came on Shabbos. I don't know how the mail worked in Volozhin. So and then Bachram would take the mail. Bachram would take the mail. So he told me a Bachar got kicked out of Volozhin for touching the mail on Shabbos. So somebody touched the mail on Shabbos, and they told the story to the Tziv, and the Tziv said to throw him out. He's a maskal. Hey, Mamish, you see, what's most, imagine today, you throw a Bachar out for moving Moksa, it'd be like a hafkanah, it's unbelievable. That's what they threw a Bachar out of Volozhin for. That's what he said, unbelievable. It seems to be in Volozhin, there was always a problem with mail. In Volozhin, used to get mail, and there's a problem, Bachar didn't have much to do over there. So they would take other people's mail sometimes. I'm not saying good Bachar, but some of the maskilim that went on afterward to become communists and things. So one Bachar, he once came over to another Bachar in Volozhin, and he said to him, because in those days that was the only form really of mass communication. They didn't have a telegraph in Volozhin, fancy people. So he went and he told him, Mazel Tov, you had a baby. He went over, he told one of the people in Volozhin, one of the other Yungalite in Volozhin, he told him, Mazel Tov, you had a baby. Right? So the person says, which wife? Which wife? He said, which wife? What do you mean, which wife? No, was it Sprincy or was it Frummy? I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, which wife? He says, what? You can't have two wives? He says, why not? He said, what are you talking? Cherem der Bene Gershon. He says, and reading my mail? And reading my mail. So it seems that post was always like, in Volozhin at site, that was, seems to be there was some issue with mail over here, but that's interesting. That's number two. Number three is that to eat muksa, that seems to be that there definitely is a strong side that eating muksa, when I say eating, I mean using up muksa. Eating muksa could be a reference to actually eating. Eating muksa could be on yontif to taking firewood and burning it up. Using up muksa, it seems to be, that is definitely a tzad in Chazal, in the Gemara, is deraisa. And that's important to know, because that's why a lot of what we're going to talk about, when we talk about movement of muksa, that you're going to see, the Pri Megadim, in the Mishpitz Zav, in Siman Shin Ches, right in the beginning, he has his own Hakadamas. He also has in the Psicha Koleles, very nice over there, in the Chelik Aleph, in Siman Chaf. He has all different, lots of some of the ideas that we're speaking out of there. Obviously, Pri Megadim is a difficult sefer to read, but over there, the Pri Megadim says that one of the reasons why we have chumras in muksa is because there definitely is some type of concept of haktsah. Haktsah means set-asideness that makes something to be in a deraisa. But it seems to be, it's borrowed that tiltal's never deraisa, tiltal's only derabbanan, but nonetheless, we have to have certain chumras because this concept of haktsah has a deraisa dika mashmayas. That's why it's important to remember this, because we'll see different chumras, and that really puts things into perspective, right? We're going to be maybe a little bit more machmer in muksa, klapi other drabbanans, maybe in Shabbos, because it has a ke'en deraisa aspect. That's the idea, because there's a Ke'en Deraisa. There's not the muktzah that we're going to discuss. 99.9% of the time, the next month is going to be all Drabanan Dikkamuksas, not Deraisa Dikkamuksas. But nonetheless, you have to know that it has a Deraisa Dikkamakor. That's very important. So we saw the other day what was the Taka Makor. So Gemara brings down that in the time in Nehemiah, there were people that were lax in Chil Shabbos. It's interesting. It sounds like over there that it wasn't just Haitzah. It's interesting. You look in the Gemara, you look in the pasuk actually, right? The pasuk sounds like that they weren't actually just doing Haitzah. It sounds like they were doing Reimois, they were doing Ma'amer, they were gathering things together. But Schita was I remember Schita, it sounded like a Reimois. They were doing all types of maybe Dorchin Gas. It says they're also very good. It says Schita seems that they were being over on Chil Shabbos and not just Haitzah. And that's what Nehemiah saw. Nehemiah said, "Yadayim askani," saying we gotta ask everything. Ad kedei kach, Rashi and Bey. That's what I mentioned the other day. Rashi Bey at Dafyat Beis. He has the kash. He says, so if we're worried about Eitzah, we're worried about Eitzah. So why don't we just ask everything? Wow, it sounds like it's tzaddik. It's okay. When they ask Atu Eitzah, what are you worried about? If one of the things you're worried about is people are going to be carrying on Shabbos, Rabbi say, I ask you, Shaila, what's more common? You should be moving around on Shabbos, things that are Asr or things that are Mutter? Of course, things that are Mutter. So what's more of a chance that he's going to carry outside? Think in your own lives. If you ever accidentally carried something out in the Erev, what was it? It was probably 99.9% something Mutter. Probably wasn't something usher, because that's the things that we handle, right? He accidentally, he was chewing on food, he's chewing on gum, maybe, whatever, all the different things, a sucking candy, whatever it was, right? So why didn't Chazal just say, you're not allowed anything on Shabbos, no food, no nothing, I don't know. They should have answered everything in the world, right? So Rashi says, it's Pashut the answer, but this is the Makor of the answer. Rashi says, because Ein Goizing Zeira Lat Tzibur, Elen Kein Roiv At Tzibur Yachal Eskayim. This I gave a reference the other day to what's going on in the world today. And you might understand it when you hear from Chazal. Chazal understood what Gzeiras people can handle, what they can't, and if Roiv Tzibur couldn't handle it, Roiv Tzibur would not be able to handle not carrying around mutadik items. So therefore there was notes. So Kilo, if you want to know, Muksa makes no sense. That's what somebody once asked in a very, rude way. Muksa makes no sense. That was his hargasha. Why? He says, if the answering got to Eitzah, there's the answering got to Eitzah. So then they should say anything you're going to carry out. Elamai, nobody's going to say anything you're going to carry out, because that's ridiculous. Nobody's going to answer anything. Nobody's going to say that anything that you can imagine you can carry out, because that's crazy, right? No one's going to say you can't move around anything on Shabbos, because anything you might carry out, that's mad, right? So that's mad. So then why should we stop halfway? Why should we say, okay, just the things that are usher, like a klisha machtali isser, and just this, that? So the answer is pashit. The answer is that really the objective of Chazal is to keep you as far away from Chil Shabbos. If we limit your supply, if we limit your things, then there is then the tzibur could handle that, right? That's not, why am I saying this? Every day there's different people with all different questions about all the huggis of today, whether I'm in no way getting involved in this topic now, but it's why is it that you can wear a mask like this, but not like that? The answer is push it. It's true. It could be that maybe in the Londis we should answer everything in the world, and we should make you wear a mask, all day, every single second. You shouldn't be able to eat, and you shouldn't be able to sleep, and you shouldn't be able to breathe. But the teretz is that Chazal said, the mashal at least, Chazal said whatever you can handle, that much we can do, and then on the rest of it we'll say, it's the same thing here. On the rest of it we'll say Shayim P'sayim Hashem. Again, it's a mashal for. I don't care what you do, as long as you don't come near me. You can do what you want, right? But the tayis in Hashkafa it's a tayis. Chazal also did like that. That's what you see here. Chazal also did. They wanted to ask muksa atu eitzah. So they said, Batson, we want to ask everything in the world, because anything in the world is able to be carried outside. So the Bims wanted to answer everything. Just that's not shaykh. So they didn't say, okay, it's not shaykh, so we're not going to make the gzeira bichlal. They said it's not shaykh, so we made it to whatever extent it's doable. And they gave it a hagdara. Klisha machtal yeser. They asked it klisha machtal yeser, let's say, etc. It's an important idea. It's a big yisayid chinuch also. Sometimes a person, this is what does us in a lot of times, right? He's all or nothing. It's not true. It's not all or nothing. There are things you can handle, and there's things you can't handle, and you have to at least work on the things that you can handle. It's pashut. I'm not saying any chedushim here. But Kapanim Nehemiah, he was very nervous about the matzav in Kallus, so he answered, and he talked in the beginning. in order to get that control back of Hilchos Shabbos and that shlita on your hands, he mamish aser a velt. He asered things that we, would never have dreamed are aser in Hilchos Shabbos. Mamish, you'll see Mitzvah Shem, we'll see. He asered so many things, so many kalim, even Dvarim Shal Heter, he asered. Slowly they became less lax and they became much more zoyer. And once it became more zoyer, so slowly he started to matir until we're left with the rules of the muksa that we have today, basically. So we asked the kasha, but we find in Chazal previously that there was certainly no yig muksa before Nehemiah's time, whether it was David HaMelech's time, whether it was in Mitzrayim, they were Mekayim, the Hilchos Shabbos, to the extent of also Hilchos Muksa, also. So we explained the other day, and now I'll give it more, fancy terminology, not the terminology that we said the other day. So there's two types of muksa, and there's many more, but there's muksa machmas gufay. That's what I called the other day. Real muksa, that's what I called the other day. Evil muksa. That's muksa machmas gufay. What's muksa machmas gufay? Muksa machmas gufay is real muksa. Real muksa, you're never allowed to move. You're not allowed to move it, not for any tzrachim. Chazal said that's real muksa. That it wasn't set aside at all for any usage in Shabbos. That's a real muksa. There can't be a teirim on such a muksa. I'll give you an example. We're going to see if muksa is in your hand, you might be able to continue. That's not on this muksa, according to most poskim. We'll see fights about these things, right? But according to most poskim, if you're holding in your hand an eggshell, you're holding an eggshell in your hand. An eggshell has no usage at all. It's totally valueless. Once it's been peeled, it's totally valueless, totally useless. It's not set aside for a kli. It's totally, so according to Kimat, all the poskim, we'll see, maybe it's a shtickle machlekes, but according to all the poskim, Kimat, you have to drop it on the spot. Why? Because you're holding muksa. That's real muksa. Real muksa is no eter. And that muksa was around, says the Aruch HaShulchan, since the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. That was around, for sure, in the time of David HaMelech. That was around before Nehemiah. That was the one they had in Mitzrayim. It's certainly a long time muksa. And that's real muksa. That's real. The gzeira of Nehemiah, this is the way the Graz learns, the Baal Tanya learns, the gzeira of real muksa, the gzeira of Nehemiah's muksa was what we call fake muksa. That is the gzeiras kalim, which is not real muksa. That's the kli shemalachtai the iser. That's the concept of kli shemalachtai the iser. What's the concept of kli shemalachtai the iser? That's a muksa, which, because for lack of the terminology, we have to have some type of a terminology. We have to give it a name. So we call it muksa. In our sprach, in our vernacular, we call it muksa, for lack of a better name. But Batsim, it's not muksa. V'haraya, we're going to see certain ateirim that when you're holding it, it's in your hand, you're allowed to put it down. You don't have to drop it. Real muksa, you have to drop right away. Muksa machmas gufay, you have to drop right away. This muksa, once it's in your hand, so Chazal made a gzeira on this kli. The reason they made the gzeira on this kli is because it's a kli. It's oymid for usage. Maybe it's not oymid for a use on Shabbos, but that doesn't take away its shame kli. In Hilchos Tumah V'Tayra, it's still called the kli even on Shabbos. It's certainly called the kli. So this type of Isser, the truth is that we could learn it as a separate sugya. We could call it the Gzeiris Kalim. That's what the Ritva calls it. That's what the Vilna Goyim calls it. All these things, as we get to the sugya, we'll see them in Mitzvah. But this is a separate Isser. We could have called it separate, just like you understand there's a separate Isser that you're not allowed to maybe play a musical instrument on Shabbos. There's a Gzeira you're not allowed on Shabbos. To all types of derabbanans that we have. There's the derabbanans of the Gzeiris of Chazal that you're not allowed to go maybe and play ball on Shabbos outside because you might come to smooth out the ground. There's all types of gags. We could have made another Gzeira. Don't use Kalim, Gzeiris Kalim. Don't go and touch Kalim in a way where you're going to move them from place to place. You're going to use don't go and use a kli for something mutter. Don't go and use a kli which is also for something mutter. Don't take a hammer. Right, like today we saw in the beginning of the before the mincha. Don't take a hammer and pry open that window. Don't pry open that window. Why not? Why not? We'll see. There might be a term for that also, right? Don't because that's a separate gzeiras kalim. Chazal asked gzeiras kalim because you might come to use that hammer to go and knock in a nail. We'll see in Mitzvah Shem that they're going to matter you to open up the window with that hammer. Mitzvah Shem. We'll talk about all this. But the point is that it's a separate isser. It's a separate isser. That one of the big playim is the name of the siman. What's the name of the siman? Dvar mutarim va'aser l'taltal b'Shabbos. Siman Shin class is called things that are mutter to move around on Shabbos and things that are aser to move around on Shabbos. Okay? Siman Shin Tes is called movement al yedei davar acher on Shabbos. Okay? And then Siman Shin Yud is dinei muksa b'Shabbos. get like a headache over here. You mean, I'm going to learn Shinches, which is, I think it's 52 Sif Cottons over here, right? 52 Sifim. 52 Sifim. I'm going to learn 52 Sifim. Then I'm going to learn in Shintes another 5 Sifim, 57 Sifim. 57 Sifim. By then, you're basically Bakiyim in Ilchus Shabbos, in Ilchus Muksa. And then I'm going to start Siman Shin Yud, and Siman Shin Yud is about Muksa. So what have I been doing until, what have I been doing in Siman Shin Ches and Siman Shin Tes? The answer is, you're not learning Muksa right now. You're learning about the things that are not allowed to be moved on Shabbos. Gzeres tiltal on Shabbos. Now, that is misparish into 2 types of Gzeres. There's one Gzera of what we call Muksa, and that's going to include a Muksa of Chasar and Kiss. That's going to include a Muksa of Machmas Gufay. Those Muksas, you're not going to be allowed to move for no reason at all. Not because you need the place, not because you need the item. And if it's in your hand, you might have to drop it because that's muksa. Included, there are gzeris of tiltal, there are gzeris of movement, which say that you can't move at all. But then there's another type of thing. There's a gzeris tiltal, there's a gzeris of not moving things, which has nothing to do with muksa. It's gzeris kalim. It's you're not allowed to move around a hammer. Stamazai, from here to there, you're not allowed to move a hammer around because I'm afraid you're going to take it and you're going to go and start knocking your nails. That's not muksa. It's not muksa. There are going to be certain aterim that I'm going to be allowed to move it when I need its place. I'm going to be allowed to move that hammer to open up a window on Shabbos. When that window is shut and you need to pry it open because it's going to be allowed to do a davar mutter. If it was real muksa, there's going to be no heter in the world. I can't take eggshells to I need the place. I'm going to move over the eggshells so I can have the place. You can't do that. But the hammer, you're going to need the place of the hammer. You're going to be able to move over the hammer. So it's obviously there's 2 separate gzeros over here. That's the basic idea. And this is very important. It's very negative hakadama. This is why that concept of a klisha malachta the yisr, a keli, whose main purpose or its ikar function is for isser, even though it's a kli, David HaMelech didn't have that gzera. David HaMelech didn't have that gzera. Avram Avinu doesn't gehat. The Mitzrayim, they might not have had this gzera. The gzera, it's an interesting hashkafa shayla. Avram Avinu was Mekayim Kol HaTorah Kula before it was given. Was Avram Avinu Mekayim gzeras that came up as a result of Klal Yisrael being lax in their kiyum mitzvahs? Right, and this is a good example. Right, it would be mashma from the grass that in Mitzrayim and Avram Avinu and Aruch HaShulchan in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu and before Nehemiah and David HaMelech, it seems to be that even though they were Mekayim Mamish Kol HaTorah Kula, they were Mekayim everything, but they weren't Mekayim things, I guess, that didn't have to be. That only came as a result of a Migdal Milsa of Klal Yisrael being lax in their shmiras mitzvahs. It's like interesting because it seems to be that David HaMelech didn't have this type of muksa. It would seem you could doicha, but you shouldn't. But that's what it seems to be. And Mamela, this is a new gzeris kalim that came about as a result of Klal Yisrael being lax in mitzvahs. This is what we said the other day. I hope it's clear. As we go further, we'll now there's going to be a lot of difficult things. Where do we categorize them? I'll just give you an example, right? I mean, that's what we're going to start to talk about. What's a klisha malachta l'yeser and its world of aterim. That's how we're going to start, really. And then we're going to start with that. That's Sif Gimel. We're going to start with. But Lemaisa, there's a lot of things which are somewhat like interesting things that you can think about. What's a candle? What's a candle? Is it a kli? What makes something a kli? Is it a kli? I mean, the whole usage of a candle is to just light and be and to end. That's what it is, right? What is it? So we know that if you have something which isn't a kli, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have something like, bleach, laundry detergent, okay? What is laundry detergent? Laundry detergent is not a kli. In Ilchas Tum V'Tayr, it's not a kli. It's not a kli. You do something with laundry detergent. Laundry detergent is something that gets used up when you use it to do the issur of washing or whatever, right? So what's the difference between laundry detergent and a schnitzel? So you saw you stick a shayla, right? What's the difference, right? So some little children don't know the answer, right? What's the difference? The answer is, it depends on what your schnitzel is. So this gets used up and this gets used up. Is a schnitzel a kli? A schnitzel is not a kli. Even the ones that they keep the feather lachan, it's not a kli, right? Is a laundry detergent a kli? No. So what's the difference in their status in their halacha and Shabbos? So a schnitzel's not a kli. And it gets used up. Yeah, but it gets used up for a mutter dika purpose. So therefore, it's oichel, and therefore you can move around schnitzel on Shabbos, right? You can move it around, right? Laundry detergent is not a kli. It's not a kli. And the only thing you could do with laundry detergent is have it used up in the form of issur, the hainu, to wash clothing, etc. So therefore, that would go into a muksa machmas gufay. That would be called real muksa. That's what we call real muksa. That's evil muksa. That you can't move a laundry detergent. Now gufay. Now when I say gufay, I mean I need the laundry detergent to move something. Not l'tzarech gufay. Not l'tzarech mekoymai. It's blocking. You have sometimes in the people have like a pantry and there's drinks behind the laundry detergent. That's how it goes. Why it's like that? That's how it goes. Because you come back from the makolet sometimes. So that's how it goes. You just throw it all in. And there's this laundry detergent, but there's the Coca-Cola, and you feel the Einik Shabbos. You feel like the Einik Shabbos, and you need it. You need it for Einik Shabbos, and you're afraid that you won't have Einik Shabbos, so you just move it, and it's tzarich of Einik Shabbos and everything, right? Yeah, but if you move that muksa on Shabbos, you have to feel like your hand got burnt by a coal. Mamish got burnt by a coal, and not only that, if you're on a higher madrega, you're going to faint. You're going to faint. The truth is, Peldik and Maisa. I said the story with the Vilna Gaon. Somebody, he sent me an email. He sent me an email that he has a Kabbalah in his family, that they have a great-great-great-grandfather that touched Muksa, and he had a heart attack and died. He had a heart attack and died. I don't know if it makes these higher matrega than the Gaon. Maybe the Gaon held it was Pekuach Nefesh, so he didn't die. Later. I don't know. Or who knows? No, who knows? Maybe the Gaon would have died. If not for the fact that his wife went and ate it, so then maybe he would have died. Nobody can know. You don't know. You can't know. Maybe this guy, maybe fakir, maybe when he touched the muksa, when he moved the muksa, so maybe his wife saw it. And the second she saw it, maybe she takis, oh my goodness, my husband just moved it. Maybe she fainted. So she wasn't able to go and eat it. And then he died. Right? I'm saying you don't know what happened over here. But so now you want to have Coke? You want to have Coke? You want to have Coke? Just be happy you're alive. Right? Don't move the muksa to get to the Coke. Yet, we're going to get to Yantif. I'm going to get to Yantif. And when you get to Yantif Muksa is more Chamradek. Yantif Muksa, we'll see what this means too. Yet, there's a heter in Muksa, in Yantif, to move Muksa, the Tzarich Eichel Nefesh. How do you figure that one out? Like, I guess if you can cook, so certainly you can move Muksa in order to get to the food. So if you need that Coca-Cola on Yantif, you'd be able to move it and you don't faint, right? And if you die, you're Ma'abed Atzma, you had no right to die. When you move that muksa to get for the Coke on Yontif. On Shabbos, there would be a different story. But on Yontif, you have no right, because on Yontif, you're allowed to move muksa l'tzarech leichel nefesh. Yet muksa on Yontif is more chumradek. I have to figure that one out. Should I tell you where it's more chumradek? We'll get there. But you get my point. The point is that muksa machmas gufay, you're going to have to, so now I know that laundry detergent, that's evil muksa. That's like a shell that's like a peel that has no usage bichlal. Okay, but what about a candle? What's a candle? Is a candle a kli? Because she holds the nair, so maybe she's doing something. She's like a leichter. It's like and also different types of candles. Some candles can't hold themselves bichlal, right? You can't put down a candle. Sometimes a candle is just like to light something else with. You can't. It won't even stand. So what is that? What's a bar of soap? A bar of soap. You can't use a bar of soap on Shabbos. It's mamreach. It's whatever. You can't use a bar of soap. So what is a bar of soap? Can I move the bar of soap? The bar of soap is blocking something. You have a cup in the bathroom that you wash out your mouth with. So you put the soap on top. Why would you do that? You did. That's how it goes. You made a mistake. So now it's there and it's blocking the cup. So you want to move okay, we have bigger problems. It might be a buses. It might be all types of problems. But could you move the soap? It's a tzarich of the malkim. I need the malkim. So what's a soap? Is soap a kli? It's just some chefsa that gets used up that I can't use on Shabbos. Sounds like detergent. Sounds like that's evil muksa. You have to work hard to determine what goes in, what's called a kli, what's not called a kli. That's part. Come again? So you want to say a candle's not a kli, or is a kli? It's more similar. The only thing is that maybe, let's say I have a candle that stands. Let's say I have a candle that stands like this. This will be my candle, right? And it stands. What? Yeah, tea light or whatever, it stands. So now you could say, I don't know, maybe she's a kli. Right? I can't use it on Shabbos. So it'll be a kli, shemalachtai, whose function is, okay, this is Mitzvah Hashem. This is what we're going to talk about. But I'm just saying, you got to be careful before you do anything on Shabbos. You got to be careful with anything on Shabbos. Sorry? Why what? Maybe once she could stand, so then it's not just there to be used up. A candle's not just there to be used up. She holds the licht, she holds the fire, so she doesn't isser, right? But she's a kli. I don't know, in Hilchos Tumah V'Tayra, right? Who's a big expert here in Tumah V'Tayra? Anybody? Right? Anybody want to, Yossi? What's Taka in Hilchos Tum V'Tayra, right? I have a shtickle raya from the Rambam in Kalim in Parakut Gimel. I'm not 100% sure. What do you think about the raya? It's Parakut Dalet. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I can find him. You get my point. This is what we're not going to talk about today. What? Yeah, the Aleph Beis she got to be a kli. Now Schnitzel's not a kli, but she's not muksa because she's also a davar which is called kulei mutter on Shabbos. We'll have to talk about this. What goes into these categories? That's number two. Now, there's things you have to talk. What's a button? What is a button? I don't mean a button when it's attached to a shirt. I mean a button when it's not attached to a shirt, right? Button falls off, you open up, or sometimes guy's sitting there, he finished his challenge here, pop, right? And then the button goes flying, almost kills somebody, right? And then the button's on the floor. So you're allowed to pick up the button. What's a button? What is a button? Is a button a kli? Well, when it's attached to the shirt, it's a kli, right? So until then, it's just a building block. So what is that? Can I do anything with the button now that it's no longer attached? Not. So then it's evil muksa. Once it's evil muksa, you can't move it, not to a gufa, not to a makar. But it's going to get lost, right? So I'll take out your violin. Right? It's going to get lost. It's not a reason to touch burning hot coals and potentially faint and even maybe die, right? It's not a reason on Shabbos to do such things. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, I mentioned that they reviewed Reb Shimon. I'm not going to go into it now, but just to give you an example, right? So there's Shabbos. So there was one of my kids bought coffee for yeshiva. He set aside a coffee for yeshiva, and then so somebody came to the door on Shabbos and they didn't have coffee. So they asked us if they could just have a coffee and they'll buy us a new coffee and whatever. But they wanted to just take a full coffee and they didn't want to take like half a coffee. They didn't want to go like the finger marks and everything. So they asked, "Do we have a full coffee there?" So I looked in the class. I said, "We don't have a coffee, right?" So then my son said, "No, I have a coffee." He set it aside for yeshiva and he set aside not to use it and whatever. But he said, "Okay, give him. They'll buy him a new one or whatever." Right? So I told him, that Lefi Rabbi Yehuda, that's mamash muksa. But then that's the example of muksa. He took this coffee, he set it aside not to be used on Shabbos. This is based on a bunch of Gemaras. He set aside this coffee to not be used on Shabbos. He did not plan on using this coffee on Shabbos. It was set aside as a noitzer. It was set aside. Yeah, it was in his bag. When he went to get it, we had issues because there was other muksa around it. And we had to be able to get it out without moving the muksa. So he set it aside to not use on Shabbos. That's the classic case of what Chazal call a taskerifin muksa. What's muksa? When Chazal talk about muksa, that's what they're talking about. That you have some food that you set aside in an oitzer and you did not plan on using on Shabbos. I can't think of a better example, right? And we don't hold of muksa. That's a good, a good example. Is we paskin that there's no such thing as muksa. Now, obviously, we're gonna have to figure that out because otherwise we're gonna be wasting our time. Not waste our time. Terry Lishma. But halacha l'maisa will be wasting our time. But it's not true. We hold of this muksa, not that muksa. But what the Gemara calls muksa, generally we don't hold of. So we paskin not like Rabbi Yehuda. We paskin like Reb Shimon. Ain't muksa. So even though he set it aside not to eat, but it doesn't matter. It's not called. We paskin that that's not the haksah. Which asers, so that asers would be a better example of something which is you can only do iser and you use it only for, and you'll never use it for anything else. So it's set aside usage and that usage you can't use in Shabbos. Like certain muksas we will agree with. Avada Reb Shimon agrees to what happened with David HaMelech. That wasn't Dali and Machlekes Rabbi and Reb Shimon. Avada, you can't touch an animal on Shabbos. Even Reb Shimon agrees there's no shaykhis because that's real muksa. That's muksa machmas kufa. That's an emes aksa. The most emes aksa that everyone agrees to is if you never did anything with it in the first place. You never set it aside as a kli in the first place. Okay, so that's l'chayra. That's l'chayra. Now, I just want to mention one thing. I said to you that again, a lot of what I'm saying today is like a together, table of contents. And then tomorrow, by the time I start, I could just sometimes throw around different terminology. I told you Yontif, there's certain things that we hear all the time. There's a lot of different lashonis that we hear. You have to know what they mean. The different things. Yontif is more machmer. So there's a lot of things in halacha that people say with tremendous confidence. People say like this. They say that it's a mitzvah to build a shul. They say it's a mitzvah to, it is a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah. They say it's a mitzvah to take a church and turn it into a shul. Right? It's not, is it? It's a mitzvah to turn a church into a shul. Somebody Punkt asked me this the other. Is a mitzvah to turn a church into a shul? So Mishnah Berurah says it might be an Isser. He's not sure. Siman Kufnan Daled Sif Kaf Mem Hey. It's not in Siman Kufnan. In Kufnan Daled, he's not sure. It might be an Aveira. He says Lamaisa is makom to be mekel, especially if they didn't have pictures of the mamzer and whatever, all types of stuff, right? Rabbi says that this makom to be mekel. I don't know if it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, right? It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. Some people say, you're not allowed. There's a chumrah to not eat something that was bittul b'shishim. I should give a whole share about this now. I just got a good idea now. The mitzvah, the things that are bittul b'shishim, there's a mitzvah not to eat something that's bittul b'shishim, right? The Bnei Yisrael says there's a mitzvah to eat something. You're saying to help that there was a mitzvah to dafka eat something that was nisbatul b'shishim because that's how your ma'ila the klip is or whatever. Right? They say, I give a whole share about this now. Which one? He's not saying it's a mitzvah. He's saying you're not bikoirus if you say that I'm not going to. He says you're not bikoirus if you say I'm not going to eat something that's bittul b'shishim. What, you're better than the Torah? You're better than the Torah? You're not better than the Torah. You're a person that says that, you're not even a toad, if you say such a thing, right? No, the Sikishmak idea is not. You like his idea? He said that it was. You should dafki eat, because otherwise, how are you going to get how's this chazer going to get his tikkun and whatever? It was obviously some Zionist leader that was nisgalgal into the chazer and whatever. How's he going to get a tikkun and whatever, right? How's this, So the only way is it was nisbatal b'shishim or whatever. All right, I like the idea. Fine. I think as I'm talking, I'm thinking of other people say it's a mitzvah lahachzer gushasei. Mitzvah to be machzer gushasei. It's not so pashut. It's not so pashut at all. There's a tashbetz about it. The tashbetz pashut. It's not a mitzvah. It's allowed. There's all these things. Anyways, so with yontif though, so people say by yontif, that is true. Is muktzah is more chamer, but it's not exactly accurate. Because I just showed you a case where muktzah is much more cooler than on yontif. On yontif, muktzah, taka, you're allowed to move muktzah, tzarich eichel nefesh. Why? Because eichel nefesh is simcha, simchas yontif. The mitzvah of simchas yontif is doicha the muktzah. Right? But the ma'aseh mitzvah sheni, muktzah is more chamer on yontif, because on yontif, this concept called noilad. And again, let me use this as a chetim to give you terminology. What's noilad? So there's a noilad out there where on yontif, if I light a match, that's a real noilad. That's a yesh me'ayin. And that's an isser to do a moilid on Shabbos. Obviously, it's a deraisa, right? On yontif, it's a shaila if it's deraisa to light a match, to strike a match. It's certainly asser. It might be derabanan, a yesh me'ayin noilad. But there's a noilad of a muksa type of noilad. What's the example of Chazal when they talk about a noilad? So there's one noilad which is an egg. An egg was born on yontif. That means that beforehand you didn't have an egg. Poof, now you have an egg. So that's noilad. That's a real noilad, right? That's a noilad. That noilad that wasn't here before and is here now. So then that's emerson noilad. It's a big shaila, like I said before, to eat that egg on Shabbos and to eat that egg on yontif. Bein Shabbos, bein yontif. We hold this thing is muksa. To eat it might be deraisa. Certainly to move it is certainly aser, and that's a real noilad. Then there's a big machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Reb Shimon of a different type of noilad. There's a noilad like this. Let's say you have chicken, and the chicken has bones. Okay, so you get through the chicken. After you eat the chicken, what are you left with? The bones. The bones. Now, in some places, there are no dogs. Right? Let's say like Ramat Shlomo, where I live. Right? So who's eating those bones? Who's eating those bones? There's no bone. There's no dogs. What? Yeah, well, okay, we're going to get to all this. It's true. Maybe they put them in the cholent or whatever. Okay, yeah. Okay, but nobody's eating the bone, and on Shabbos you can't put her in the cholent, right? No, you can't put it in the cholent on Shabbos, maybe. Okay. So now I have this bone. So beforehand, what was she? She was chicken. This is full sugis and shas for Paisai. So listen well, because it's important to know these things. Beforehand, she was a chicken. Now what happened? The chicken, she was the whole chicken was undressed over here, and you're left with just bones. These bones, are anybody going to eat these bones? So if there's no farm animals around, so then these bones become to real muksa. Because what's the difference between a bone and what's the difference between a shell? So this is real muksa, and that could be a problem on Shabbos. We'll have to see how you're going to clean a table or whatever. That's real. But let's say, I know that in Ramat Eshkol there's dogs, because when I park upstairs, a lot of times I see them. Right? So I don't know, you're telling me it's pumped in this chatzer over here, right over there, where I park. The mistama means that there might be, the mistama is like a kennel around here or something, right? Because I always see them, I always see the dogs, right? And there's, I guess, all these bali chasadim that take the dogs for a walk and things like that from the kennel. That's how it goes, mistama. But there's a bunch of dogs here. So now you get involved. Are those, are the bones, dogs eat bones, right? And I'm sure if you knock on the neighbor's door, you knock on Nimrod's door and these chavra, you say, no, I have here some Shabbos food for your dog, right? It's mamish, it comes from a cholent and it comes from whatever. And it's maybe Kedushas Shabbos. And I'm sure you'd be happy you should let the dog eat the bone or whatever. We'll have to talk about all these things. You can hear all my Ramazim as you're listening. But Lamaisa, so Titachin that here in Ramat Eshkol, a bone, it doesn't become muksa once he was undressed, once the chicken was taken off and you're left with the bone. It could be that the bone isn't muksa. Why? Because the bone is edible for a dog. But that's a fight. Tzvishin, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says, that's muksa. You know why? That's noilud. It used to be chicken, used to be people food. When it was attached to the bone, the chicken, it was people food, right? It was holding on the chicken. Now it's dog food. It's a different yud, it's a different shimush, it's a different yichud, it's a different aksa. So Rabbi Yehuda says that's muksa. That's muksa. It used to be chicken, people food, and now it became animal food. Just give me a moment. Rabbi Shimon says, that's not muksa. That's not muksa. That's the difference. Again, in the case of where it's in Ramat Shlomo and nobody's eating it, let's say you got bigger problems. That's real muksa. This isn't just, it became a useless piece of nothing. It became a shell. But let's say it's not useless. It's edible to dogs or to whatever, right? So now you went from people food to animal food. That's called noilad. That's a different type of noilad than we spoke about. It's not a noilad of yesh mi'ayin. This noilad is a fight. The first noilad everyone agrees is us, there's muksa. This is a fight between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. That's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. How do we paskin? So on Shabbos, we paskin mutter. Yeah? We paskin it's mutter. We paskin noilad is mutter. If you live in Ramat Eshkol and you have the bones now, since theoretically you can give it to a dog, so then it won't be muksa. I'm oversimplifying, but for the concept right now, for the concept. Masha'en kain on Yontif, if you went from people food to animal food, it changes. This is my example right now, right? It changed its yud, it changed its yichud. So on Yontif, we're more machmer. Why? Because on Yontif, people are very lax, right? So the mela, since people are lax, they think Yontif is more cooler. They know there's lots of coolers. So Chazal had to ask him more. Okay, when we say that, you have to know. When we say that, we'll have to try to figure it out. But that's another concept. The reason I'm throwing these things around to the Olam is because you get to all these Gemaras and it really doesn't, a lot of them don't shtim what you can learn over here in Halacha. What we do hold Muksa, we don't hold Noilat. So now you have a lot of Nakudas. You have what's the Machlekes of Reb Shimon. You have what's real Noilat. You have what's fake Noilat. You have where's Yantif more Chamer. You have where Yantif is less Chamer. And that's the basics, sorry? Yeah, I'm going to talk about that, how close do the dogs have to be, and whatever, all that we're going to talk about. What? Yeah, so if you have little bits of chicken left, it could be, that'll also help us. It could be also, it's okay, now we'll talk about that. All this we're going to talk about. Mitzvah Shem, that's in Sivkot and Lamed, and Sivkot and Lamed Aleph, and Lamed Beis, and Narsim, and Shin Ches, right? That's the big thing. Okay. Now, let's go weiter. The Pri Megadim in the Mishpat Zov, you should know, everybody say, the purpose of this year, I must tell you, is to make your life easier. So listen well. This is stuff that it's really akdamas that are going to make your life a lot easier. The Pri Megadim, we saw the other day, that the Rambam said there's a Kal V'Chomer. So the Rambam, why did they ask her muksa? So the Rambam says, it's a Kal V'Chomer. If you're supposed to walk a certain way on Shabbos, you're supposed to dress a certain way on Shabbos, you're supposed to talk a certain way on Shabbos. Kal V'Chomer, you're supposed to touch a certain way on Shabbos. You're supposed to move. Your things you should be touching would be with that cheshbon. If you're supposed to be talking, walking, and all that on Shabbos, so Kal V'Chomer, the things you touch should be cheshbon also, and what things you touch on Shabbos should be different. Okay, so Maisa, first of all, the Pri Megadim says, where did the Rambam get this from? I mean, it's like, it's a Kabbaldik Chiddush, that we'll talk about in a moment, right? But the Pri Megadim said, then why afterward does the Rambam need, this is the Pri Megadim in Shin Ches I mentioned, the Mishpat Zov, also the Psicha Koleles in Aleph Chaf, but mostly in the Mishpat Zov, in the beginning of our Siman, when he brings like Damas. He says, why is the Rambam then afterward going to go and bring down all these other reasons? That they answered because there's some people that they don't work during the week. So then where is it nicker the difference between Shabbos and a weekday at that time? What do you need that for? You just did a very nice time. So he says like this. He says, well, if that's the reason why, that your talk should be different and your walk should be different and your everything should be different, even your thoughts, right? And your touching should be different, your movement of things should be different. So then we know, klape speech on Shabbos, there's a heter of mitzvah. Mimtzai chefzecha, chavetzecha asur, bechefzei shemayim amuter. The heterim of mitzvah, you're allowed to talk for purpose of mitzvah. Shidduch is the purpose of a mitzvah, all types of mitzvahs. We spoke about this last Zman, what things you're allowed to do on Shabbos, what you're allowed to speak on Shabbos, walking for certain mitzvahs, etc. All these things are mutter. So then if it's based on a kal v'chomer, then you're going to be allowed to move muksa, l'tzarech what? L'tzarech mitzvah. V'zeh says the Prima Gadam, can move everywhere. We pass in that you're not allowed to move muksa for the purpose of a mitzvah. I just told you by Yontif. For the purpose of Simchas Yantif, you are allowed to. We have to figure this out. That's one thing. Second of all, the Maggid Mishnah, the Prima Gadim, they asked the Kasha and the Rambam, like we asked the other day, the Ravid's Kasha. How does he answer the Ravid? The Ravid said, what's the reason for Muktzah? So the reason is Haitzah. The reason is Haitzah. So if the reason is Haitzah, why did the Rambam have to make up 3 new reasons? Because you're going to come to Isser with things, because you're going to come because it's not Nicker, Shabbos is different than a weekday, because Kal v'chomer, if you have to talk a certain way, then certainly your movement has to be different. What's the husband? So this is interesting. This is interesting. The Prima Gadim says, because the Rambam sheet is that Haitzah on Yontif, even when it's L'loy Tzarech at all, is not deraisa. Let's say a person on Yontif, he's outside, in Erev, there's no Erev or whatever, it's Rabbi, Mamish, and Yontif, and he's carrying not l'tzarech Yontif. Okay, he's carrying not l'tzarech Yontif. He's carrying l'tzarech Yontif, it's Motor Gomer, right? Even without an Erev. He's carrying not l'tzarech Yontif, like he's carrying stones. So Prima Gadim learns, but that's the Rambam, that carrying on Yontif is never deraisa. Never deraisa. So Prima Gadim says, so if the Rambam, of course he couldn't say the reason for muksa is atu hoitzah. Because then what's the reason why on Yontif there's going to be muksa? Because of Haitzah. To be over on Haitzah on Yontif is never deraisa. The most Yontif is derbanan. So then why did they ask for muksa on Yontif? So what are you going to say? You'll say, so on Shabbos it's Al Tzaisa. But once anyways on Yontif there's an Isser of muksa. And I'm going to have to explain to you what the Isser of muksa is on Yontif. And it's going to be out some other thing. So then it's mistaber that's the reason in general, Bain for Shabbos, Bain for Yontif. That's why he wants to learn Pshat. What's Pshat in the Gemara then? So Pshat in the Gemara. The Gemara says it's no. What's Pshat in the Gemara? What? Come again? Pshat. The Gemara is only going on Shabbos. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, but you see, you have to work these out. Maggid Mishnah says that once Klal Yisrael were more Zoyer in Hilchos Shabbos, and they were no longer doing Chilul Shabbos. So then, Nehemiah originally, he wanted to just aser everything because of Haitzah. That's what he wanted to do originally. But then, slowly he saw that we don't have to have that problem anymore, because the idea is like this. I'll explain it. When I have to think about what I'm allowed to be moving on Shabbos, so then I'm inevitably going to think about not going outside carrying those things on Shabbos. I'm going to be thinking more. That's what Nehemiah was trying to gain over here. I'm going to be thinking more before I move things around. So Nehemiah gained that. His original cheshbon might have been because they're just not thinking before they move things. It leads to them actually going outside and carrying things. So therefore, he made a huge chumrah over here. Mamish, with so many things that slowly, they were getting more zoyer. They think before they move things. So now the Rambam had a big problem, says the Maggid Mishnah. They think now before they move things. So then why we still have a whole list of things here, Klishim Lachtal Yesers? Why do we still ask the Klishim Lachtal? When Nehemiah was Mekel, he wasn't Mekel Legamre, he didn't take off the whole entire Gzeira. Says the Maggid Mishnah, those reasons are for the Rambam's reasons. Nehemiah saw, it's true. Mitzad saw, we don't have to, they think before they move things. We've accomplished that. But he saw still, the Maisa, Dorchen Gaz, there's still things. Maybe those things were not enough of a reason to make the Gzeira. The original Gzeira was because they weren't thinking before they moved things. And that now we accomplished that, we don't have that issue, so therefore they're not going to come to carry anymore outside. They won't. But we still, once Nehemiah was geyser, he said, it may be not enough of a reason to make the Gzeira milachatchila. But now that we made the Gzeira, and there's still episode reason, because safe, they might come to use that hammer on Shabbos. So says the Gemara, says the Rambam, That's why Nehemiah, the Rambam is the biggest mefarsh in the Gemara. That's why Nehemiah continued to aser kelim shemalachta le'isr, but this new ksera, like we explained in the beginning of this year, that's why it has its list of kulas. Come again? Daber? Yes, Daber and Shabbos and Yom Tov is the exact same isr. Yes. Now, the Chayodam in Siman Samach Vav and Sif Aleph, he's quick to point out that don't forget, after everything you're hearing today, there's a pasuk v'chinu es asher yaviu, which the Gemara is at Sadis deraisa, which we paskin is probably not deraisa, but nonetheless, it's enough of a smach of a kra that everything we're going to talk about has shmek sachepis deraisa. Shmek sachepis has a connection to deraisa, and that's adkan. That's adkan. So that's your akdama. That's akdama. Now, Maisa is what is it like 7 minutes left? 7 minutes. I'm not going to start now. Klish machal yeser. That will start from Yetzer Hashem tomorrow. I want to just give you an example of everything you heard today, how it plays itself out. Right? So let's say you have a shayla like this. The truth is there was some terminology I still want to tell you guys. So, yeah, Buzz, let me give you first the terminology, that's the truth. Don't you want to see how things play themselves out? A little bit. So what should we do? All right, half. Let's see. We have a few minutes. Let's see. All right. So like this. Let's say you have like this. You have a hotel. Okay? Now, let's say there's Jews that went to hotel. Why would the Jews go to a hotel? Why would they go to a hotel? They don't have a house? No, because they came to let's say Yerushalayim, a Corona hotel. Right? Let's say they went to a Corona hotel, right? And that's, they have no choice. They have to be there. And what happened? So somebody on, let's say, Erev Shabbos, he was looking for a place. Why did he took a chair? There was, and he put down on this chair, he put there, can you give me something muksa that he puts on a chair? What? Car keys. Why would he put car keys on a chair? He's a weird guy. What? Candlesticks. Why would he put the candlesticks on a chair? Okay, so I'll tell you why. No, he put his candlesticks on a chair. Why? Because the Maisa, everyone knows the whole Shaila Fatlakas Neris inside a hotel, where to light and whatever, Gansa Maisa, right? And they have over there that table that everybody lights, and it's Kan Madikim in Barachad Batala, it's a total waste of time and this and that. So this guy, he decided he's going to be, he's going to be smarter than everybody else. He can't light over there, so he has to light by the table. But he knows if you go and you put the candles on the table, so what's going to happen? If you put the candles on the table. So right away, they have these guys, they come and they take off the candles because they don't want anybody lighting on the table. So he took like a chair, put it next to his table on the other side over there, a nice little fire hazard over there. And he put the candle on the chair like this, and that way, shame. And that way he had his neiris right next to his table. He has neiris next to the table. Now that chair, that becomes a basis. Basis means the thing that holds the muksa. We're going to learn that a candle is muksa. We have to talk about all these things, right? Now the fire is for sure muksa, right? So now the thing that's holding the fire is the cup, really is the wick. The wick that's holding up is the oil. The thing that's holding up the oil is the cup. The thing that's holding up the cup is the leichter. The thing that's holding up the leichter is the chair. So therefore everybody is a muksa all the way down with the same level of the muksa of the top fellow. So if the top fellow is a evil muksa, it's a muksa machmas gufay, and you're not allowed to move her, not l'tzarech gufa, not l'tzarech mekaymai. So then all the way down, that chair is also an evil muksa. You can't move it, not l'tzarech gufa, l'tzarech mekaymai. Okay. You wake up in the morning, Shabbos morning, and not only is that the place where they eat, it's also the place where they daven. You know how it goes, right? So then you see there's 500 chairs, and they're all mixed together. They took all the chairs and they put them on in piles and piles of chairs. So then you look around for your lighters and your candles, you had your little tea lights over there. They're gone, and the chair's gone, right? Because Nimrod took all the chairs and he put them all together over there. And now your chair, your muksa chair, is mixed with 499 other chairs. So what are you going to say? Batal with 499, it's no problems, right? Everything is batal. Right? So it's true. The chair you're taking right now, she might be a basis, she might be a shtik muksa. Because as of when Shabbos came in, there was candles on this chair. She was a basis. As of when Shabbos came in. So now maybe what? Maybe you're mazel, you got the evil chair. But who cares? It's batal. It's batal. If you don't believe in bittul, you are a goy. A very ugly one, as a matter of fact. because even for the goyim, there's a raya from the Minchas Chinuch that they might have bittul in certain situations. Okay, so here you have the chair. The chair is batal, and therefore all the chairs are mutter, right? Right? No, bittul. Okay. So now there's a problem. There's something called a davar sheyesh lo matirim. You know what davar sheyesh lo matirim means? Davar sheyesh lo matirim means why. If I have the ability to not be seimich on bittul, as if to say that Chazal only gave the concept of bittul, Chazal only gave this concept of bittul at kama that we have no choice but to be relying on. Once there is bittul, there's bittul. But Chazal only gave bittul at kama that you have to come on to bittul. But Davar Sheish Matirim says, why have it coming on to bittul? Wait until you don't have to have bittul. How would I wait till I don't have bittul? Do I have to wait for Loilam Vayed for this chair to use? No. You just wait till Motzei Shabbos, you'll be able to use this chair without relying on bittul. That's the concept of a davar sheyesh lo matirim. Davar sheyesh matirim means that why, you know what the example of the Gemara is of a davar sheyesh matirim? The egg that was noiled on Yontif. You had an egg already, right? The egg was noiled on Yontif. It got mixed in with all the other eggs. So one of these eggs is muksa. So Chazal say, why, lama? Why do you have to eat the egg? I eat bottle with a billion eggs. Why do you want to do that? Wait till Motzei Shabbos and you'll have French toast. Why do you have to have it on Shabbos or Yontif? Actually, there's Yontif. Why do you have to have it on Yontif and rely on bittul? Just wait till Motzei Yontif. If you wait till Motzei Yontif, you'll be able to have it without coming on to bittul. So you see this concept of a davar sheyesh lo matirim. Why am I telling you all this? Good. That's it. Why am I telling you this? So first of all, in the case we just said, I'm not convinced b'chlal that anything's asa. Who wants to tell me why? Anyone have? What? That's in the world of davar sheyesh matirim. That wouldn't make it that the shiloh doesn't start. Oh. So Rabbi Bergman says, who says that you could take a chair, put leichters on a chair? It doesn't seem to be, this is like the Rutzen of the hotel very much, right? What are you doing? You're taking my chair and you're putting leichters and candles on my chair, and now you made my chair usher. I'm not convinced. Basis means that you put something on the chair and you have a right to put it there. You have to put something on the table. You have a right to put it there. So therefore, it's chal the buses. Who says that you have the ability to answer that which is not yours? Who says? So I'm not convinced that the whole thing starts. Mamela, just a moment. Mamela, the chair, she's not muksa. Maybe the chair is not muksa because she's not a bus. Because Mamela, nothing starts. Maybe just for lemana mitas hadavar. But let's say I asked somebody in charge. They told me, yeah, you can take a chair. It's no problem. Let's say you hold it. That's called he has a right to give me the rishus. So now I have this problem. He gave me the rishus. I have the right to use the chair. The chair, she's now a buses. And now she's mixed in there with the 1,400 other chairs. Sorry? Oh. So now, why am I telling you all this? Because the concept of davar sheyesh matirim is not just a concept in bittul. The concept of davar sheyesh matirim is a concept in general in the rules of Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula. So this is what I wanted to at least close with, right? When we talk about muksa, you're going to learn now the next 52 seifim over here, and you got a strong limit today that muksa is the Rabbanan. Muksa is the Rabbanan, right? It's the Rambam's reason, it's Atuaitza, it's whatever it is, but muksa is the Rabbanan. Muksa is not the Raisa. Okay? So now, I ask you, Shaila, muksa is the Rabbanan, you're going to have a lot of sveikus in the next 52 seifim. I can imagine every day there's going to be one. It's going to be a suffix, right? If not more. You're going to have sveikus in Chazal. You're going to have sveikus in the Mishabura. You're going to have machlekes in Mapoiskim. You're going to have all types of shilas. So what's the halacha? When you have a suffix in muksa, what's the din suffix muksa? If suffix muksa would have been deraisa, we said suffix muksa, suffix deraisa l'chumra. What's the din of a suffix muksa? Do we say suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula? Okay. So now, you know. There is a Mishabura here. You have it. You might as well. You have it open. Mishabura over here and Shintas. He's talking about a whole Sagan Shaila over here. Mishabura Shintas. I think Shartzin it was in Sikot and Chav Dalet. It's a long Mishabura Shartzin over here. And he says, no, it's all Shaila. How we pass in Lanias Daiti. You can go like the Mogan Avram, and the Maratzia says like that also. He says, you know what? Ubefrat, because Muksa is a davar shel divrayim b'shoyim lahakel. Muksa is D'Rabbanan. So since Muksa is D'Rabbanan, Shaymin lahakel. Like a svar, like, you know, you're not sure what to do. Savik D'Rabbanan, then the kula. That's how I saw one sefer brings down this Mishabura. It doesn't say what I just said in the Mishabura. Mishabura doesn't say because it's a suffix D'Rabbanan the kula. He says, since it's a D'Rabbanan, Shaymin lahakel. Shaymin lahakel. Every drop of ink in the Mishabura is so precious. So Mishabura over here doesn't say suffix D'Rabbanan l'kula. Mishabura says over here, when you're dealing with muksa, you're dealing with a Shaila Rabbanan, and we can hear that stud and more lahakal. The Mishabura B'dafka doesn't say just suffix Rabbanan the Kula by Muksa. I'm going to tell you, it's not a big klal in general. If you go with the klal of suffix Rabbanan the Kula when you learn Hilchos Shabbos, you're going to get a very big headache. Because most of the things that we learn in Hilchos Shabbos are Rabbanan, and anytime you have a suffix in the Mishabura, in the 30,000 places over here, the Mishabura should just say, it's Machlekes Mogen from the Taz. They're pretty big knockers, Mogen from the Taz, right? So why don't you say, just don't know what to do. It's something that on the kula. It never says that. It's not the style of the poskim. You got to be before you throw around terminology like something to rabban on the kula. You have to have a license. Rav Moshe, he talks about whenever he talks about Hilchos Shabbos, he says, Hilchos Shabbos. I'm about to lose these guys 1 minute. Whenever he talks about Hilchos Shabbos, about to lose them, I think. All right. He said, you have it over there? I'm about to end anyways. Tell them it's okay. If they hear me, good. If not, I'm about to lose them, I think. He said, whenever we talk about Hilchos Shabbos, Rav Moshe says, whenever you're dealing with Hilchos Shabbos, you have to be more machmir. Whenever you're dealing with Hilchos Shabbos, you have to be machmir. The truth is, it's an error already now. It's an error anyways. All right, I see it there. All right, I'll pick it up from here, Bez Hashem. I'll pick it up from here. Maisa, you saw a velt, Rabbi says, a lot over here. It's a lot here. The ikr is to realize, like we said, again, I want the olam to be going into Klishim Lach L'Yisr. You work on Klishim Lach L'Yisr. That's what the ikr of the shir is going to be on tomorrow's Klishim Lach L'Yisr. But there's a lot of terminology over here. It's very important to realize there's different muksas. It's very important to realize the word we use is muksa, but when we talk about Klishim Lach L'Yisr, it might not be that type of muksa. It's very important to know that Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, we don't pass in Rabbi Yehuda, and the cases of Rabbi Yehuda are not so nogay over here. It's the concepts of deraisa, drabanan, everything is drabanan, but that's not a license to just be makel on everything over here. Tomorrow I'll just do for 1 minute. I want to give you the rest of the terminology. No, that's taka, just a few, and then I want to go into Klishim Lach L'Yisr, Bez Hashem.